I'm going to call the Salem Housing Authority meeting for July 9th to order. If the recorder would please call the roll.
Commissioner Tessler?
Present.
Commissioner Nanke?
Here.
Commissioner Clausen?
Here.
Commissioner Dickey?
Here.
Commissioner Thomas?
Here.
Commissioner Blasey?
Here.
Commissioner Clem is absent, and sitting in for him is Guest Commissioner Heather Swanson.
Here.
Chair Bennett.
Here. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I have no one signed up for public comment. Is there anyone that wants to address the Housing Authority? All right. Commissioner Nanke, would you like to move the consent calendar?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Second by Thomas. Mr. Wales, are there any parts of this you would like to highlight under discussion?
I'd be happy to, Commissioner Bennett. My name is John Wales. I'm the Director of the Urban Development Department. Fortunately, Andy Wilch can't be here tonight, and so we are filling in for him, and we have folks here from the Housing Authority, Phil Dean, who manages the voucher program, and Terry Frazier, who handles the public housing plan, which is on the agenda tonight. There were a couple of things that Andy had suggested that we just update you briefly on. The first is and both of them really are, the first two really have to do with the sale of the units that we've been talking about for the past few months. As far as the 10 affordable housing unit properties, those have been appraised, they have been listed, they are and being marketed right now. Brokers have been contacted, and in fact, we've had some conversations with some existing tenants in those units that are interested in acquiring those. So that's a very positive discussion. As far as the public housing properties, the scattered sites, remember there's 47 out of the 87 properties that are being recommended for disposition. Those appraisals are going on right now. Although there's 47 units, there's 37, or about 30, properties that are being appraised right now. We're expecting those appraisals to be complete in August. And once those are completed, they will be included in the application that will go to HUD that will be submitted in September in order to proceed with that. We thought it would also be interesting because this has been in the paper. We have, many of you may have read about a fire in one of the properties. This isn't an SHA property. It's a Salem Kaiser CDC property, Royal Pines, that occurred a few weeks ago. But we had several vouchers and tenants in those properties. And I asked Phil Dean if he might give us an update as to what's happened with those units and with those tenants.
Hello, I'm Phil Dean. I'm with Salem Housing Authority. I'm the Housing Services Supervisor for the voucher program. Just wanted to bring you up to date. We had, out of 28 units at the Royal Pines Apartments, we had 11 clients that were renting at those apartments, 4 of which were our veterans under the project-based program. What we wanted to let you know is that within 3 days, we had 5 people from the date of the fire. We had 5 people that we had done inspections, gave vouchers to, and entered into contracts. Within 7 days of the fire, we had 10 people that were housed, and we had one straggler that didn't contact us. We couldn't find her to get a hold of her, but she finally did, and we had her leased up within 2 weeks of the fire. So we just wanted to let you know that our staff worked pretty hard with Salem Kaiser CDC and other landlords to get these families that were affected by this devastating fire. I went out and looked at it, and it was pretty devastating, and got them into housing as quickly as we could, and they're all housed again.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. We have no special orders of business, no unfinished business, no new business. If there is no other business, we're adjourned.
All right, we'll call to order the City Council meeting for July 9th, 2012. Would the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Bennett?
Here.
Counselor Tessler? Present. Counselor Nanki? Here. Counselor Clausen? Here. Counselor Dickey? Here. Counselor Thomas? Here. Counselor Blasey? Here. Counselor Clem is absent. In his place is guest counselor Heather Swanson? Here. Mayor Peterson?
Here. And thank you very much for being a guest counselor with us this evening. We appreciate you making time and being a part of our community. I know you do many other volunteer projects with the city. We're no stranger to you, and you not a stranger to us, but welcome for coming this evening.
Thank you, my pleasure.
All right. Do we have any additions or deletions? I see
Yes, Madam
something
Mayor.
here.
We do.
Counselor Bennett?
Madam Mayor, I move additions, deletions, and revisions. In this case, it's a revision for the agenda.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the additions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Are there any counselors wishing to make comments this evening? Counselor Nanki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Took advantage of the festivities at the park on the 4th of July. Had a wonderful time. There was some really nice Chevys. I'm a Chevy man. And it was amazing. I was at the River Road Park over the weekend as well, and both at the 4th of July event and at River Road Park. The children really love the splash fountains.
Oh, that's great.
They were max, especially with the weather as it was on the weekend. Good fireworks, good bands. What was it? Bourbon Street Jazz Band and the Cowboy Rock and Roll Cowboys.
Oh, I missed that.
So some good music and good fun.
Great. Thank you. Other counselors with comments? Counselor Tessler.
I attended the Salem the Art Fusion on Friday night, and I just wanted to thank Salefield Griggs for paying for the Portland Cello Project to come to Salem and give a really, really great concert. And if you haven't heard the Portland Cello Project, you really should, because they're amazing. And it's a really rare opportunity to hear them in Salem. And so it was quite a treat. So, and they sponsored the whole thing. So that was really a nice thing for the citizens. So a public little thank you to Salefield Griggs for that.
And who did you say sponsored?
They're called the Portland, or Salefield Griggs.
Oh, Saltfield
Griggs.
Yes.
Saltfield Griggs.
Thank you.
They sponsored the Portland Cello Project.
Thank you. Wonderful. Great. Others? All right. We'll now move to public comment. Are you going to?
Yeah.
Counselor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move suspension of the rules to allow the council to consider Councilor's item 10.2B.
Can you pull your microphone? Counselor Bennett, can you please pull your microphone a little closer?
Oh, I'm
We're not
sorry.
hearing you. That's okay.
Sorry. Do you
right.
want me to do it again?
Yes, please.
Okay, I have it memorized.
Okay, good.
Madam Mayor, I move the council suspend rules to take up consideration now of item 10.2B.
Before or after public comment?
Now.
Before public comment.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there a second?
I'm just doing what I was told.
Yeah.
It's part of the.
It's been moved by Counselor Bennett and seconded by Counselor
I
Nanki.
just want to make clear that what your motion does, Counselor, is that we would consider Counselor Tessler's motion before public comment has been received.
Yes, as I said,
Yeah.
Mr. City Attorney, I'm doing what was suggested to me, I think, by you. So I'm just proceeding down that, and I can change it if you'd like.
No, the
You
question.
call it.
The question is whether whether the council wants to have the consideration of the councilor's motion before or after the public comment. Mine was simply to tell you when on the agenda it will be okay to make the motion to
If you
suspend.
don't want to debate me, I made my motion and I said now, okay?
All right, it's been moved by Counselor Bennett and seconded by Counselor Nanki, correct?
Yep.
to suspend the rules and address Counselor's motion item, which is 10.2B. Is there discussion? Counselor Tessler and then Counselor Clausen.
I offer a friendly amendment, and the friendly amendment would be that we suspend the rules until after public comment, because I believe quite a few people here are going to comment on this issue, and it seems odd to not listen to comment before making a decision. That's my friendly amendment.
I believe that's a substitute motion, Counselor.
Substitute motion, then.
I'll second that. I'm only responding to Councilors Tessler and Tosh on this issue. So.
Not Counselor Tosh.
Earlier.
Acting City Manager, City Attorney Tosh. All right, Counselor Clausen.
I was headed that direction too. I was going to ask if there was anybody signed up for public testimony. I assume there is.
There is. All right. Then the motion as amended is to, the substitute motion is to suspend the rules and address the item 10.2B, the motion by Counselor Tessler, correct? After the public comment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Motion carries.
That was an interesting eye series there.
All right, we'll move to the public comment. We have quite a few people signed up for this, so what I'm going to do is to call your names two at a time. We have two podiums, and so you can choose whichever you like, and that way we kind of move things along more quickly. And just so you all know, you all get to hear the speech one time. You have 3 minutes, and the amber light comes on at the end of 2, and at the time of the red light, your time is up. That's the end of 3 minutes. Okay, we have Carrie Topple and Kirk Leonard.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Manager, and Attorney, Councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Carrie Topol. I live at 270 24th Street Northeast in Salem. I am co-founder and chair of Marion Polk Move to Amend, a local affiliate of the National Coalition working to assert that only natural persons are legally people and money is not the same as political speech and can therefore be regulated. This is a pro-business and nonpartisan issue. Our affiliate formed in March of 2011, and the National Coalition has existed since 2009. We bring this up to dispel any notion that we ride on the Occupy wave, although we do share this issue. I founded Marion Polk Move to Amend when my master's work on community resilience revealed the actual power centers in our country. I learned that in the United States, a country that espouses to be of the people, for the people, and by the people, decisions that locally and nationally impact locally and nationally the quality of the environment, the safety of our workplaces, and who has access to health care, to name a few issues, are determined by those who can afford to pay to have their voices heard, not by we the people. A 126-year history has established that corporations have the same constitutional rights as human beings. Corporations, vital to our economy, were originally created to perform a public service and be dissolved when that function was complete. Now they live indefinitely and can exist in numerous places simultaneously, unlike humans. Now they can also vote with a big voice, since money is legally considered political speech, and they influence our policymakers to serve their interests versus that of the public. All of this has corrupted our democracy and made it a plutocracy, governance by money, not people. I find it ironic, on a personal note, that my work on this project has served to strengthen the patriotism I feel for this country. I look forward to the day that my government is truly responsive to the needs of its citizens as a whole, not just to those who can afford to influence it. Today we are asking that the City of Salem give us, the people, the opportunity to vote in November to assert that natural persons only are considered people in the context of our Constitution, and money is not speech. To right this terrible wrong. This request is not unique, as many communities in Oregon and around the country have passed resolutions and ballot measures to assert the same in a growing movement to protect the democracy we all believe still exists, however buried it may currently be. In Oregon, Corvallis, Eugene, Portland, Yachats, Silverton, and in the past 2 weeks, Baker City, Coos Bay, Newport, and Lynn have asserted independence from corporate rule. Locally, in just this past year, we have more than 850 supporters and 1,000 petition signatures, including endorsements from local businesses, churches, and neighborhood associations. Nationally, hundreds of jurisdictions in 6 states have passed actions. I'd like to emphasize again that we are asking for an opportunity for the citizens of Salem to vote on this issue in November, not for the council to take a stand one way or another. Thank you very much for your attention and consideration.
Thank you. Are there questions for her? Councillor Clausen.
Thank you for the testimony. At one point, you mentioned that all those communities have asserted independence from corporate rule. How did they do so? Did they pass something to put it on the ballot for people to vote on, or?
Some have passed resolutions. For example, Portland is one. The city just said, we support this language. And some have putting it on a ballot, so it's varied.
Okay, but to be clear, you're not asking us to make a recommendation. You're just asking us to put something on the ballot, so we're not asserting anything.
Exactly. We just want
Okay.
the opportunity to vote.
Thank you. I just want to be clear.
Thank you. Other questions? Councillor Bennett.
Carrie, could you describe the constitutional amendment process for me?
It would be either proposed by the Congress or given to 3/4 of the states to ratify. I admit I'm not 100% clear on that. My colleagues are. I have not been able to study lately.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Kirk Leonard.
Good evening. I'm Kirk Leonard, and I live at 1285 Waller Street Southeast. Madam Mayor, city staff, councilors, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to clarify 3 things that are in the air tonight. The vote tonight is first, what corporation means in the context of what we're talking about, and what the consequences of an eventual amendment probably will be. There's a lot of confusion and misinformation among us on these. The vote you will take tonight is not about an amendment. There isn't an amendment to vote on. There are dozens of them out there, including more than a dozen in Congress. Several of those are supported by most of our state representatives and both senators. When this is taken up by Congress, which we hope will be soon, we'll have language, we'll have an amendment. Right now, we have lots of ideas about one, so that can't be voted on. The vote tonight is also not about whether or not you support an amendment or think one should happen. It's simply to allow the citizens of Salem to have a voice in the national debate that's going on by putting our referral on our November ballot. To me, this is fundamental, even noble as an element of our democracy. Let the people vote. Secondly, what do we mean by corporations? All of the amendment suggestions and proposals I'm aware of, and I'm in the middle of it, so I've seen most of them, if not all of them, all include all corporations, businesses, big and small, nonprofits, foundations, and unions, period. No corporation is exempt. Those who think differently need to take a closer look at what's been proposed. Lastly, many people, especially when hearing about our opposition to corporate personhood for the first time, think that the day after such an amendment is passed, there'll be chaos. Oh my God. We'll fall off a cliff into an economic abyss. Our businesses will have to close. And nothing could be further from the truth. Let me be clear. The day after an amendment such as the one we're proposing passes, nothing will happen. It will be business as usual. What will happen is that existing laws may be newly enforced. New laws will need to be developed. New court decisions will happen because there will be a different constitutional fundamental involved. We strongly believe that our current political environment and situation has damaged and will continue to badly damage our democracy at all levels. needs to be addressed with a fundamental change, a constitutional amendment. Please, let the people vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there
Explain the
questions?
constitutional amendment process, too.
Excuse me, Mr. Leonard, I think there might be a question for you. Councilor Bennett, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. So what are you asking? I was under the impression that there was some language to go on the ballot, and that language reflected a constitutional amendment proposal, or, so that's not what this is. This is just a, what?
No, it reflects a constitutional amendment desire, there's no constitutional amendment being proposed. That, that has to be done in Congress.
A desire?
Yes, the question is whether or not people think that a constitutional amendment should be passed. And I've provided, you have another copy, you have copies here tonight of a complete resolution package that we provided last week, that the city attorney, I believe, has it, and Councilor Tesler has it because she stepped up to make her motion. It's complete. It's a resolution that has to be passed by the city in order to authorize it, because it's a unique kind of referral. It's not a constitutional or statutory question. It's an advisory question. And our ballot title is there. That's all the language. And there is also an explanatory statement, which is what goes in the voter's pamphlet.
Okay. That's what we'll be voting on tonight?
Yes, putting the question on the ballot.
So
yes.
the council's explanatory, the city's explanatory statement is part of Councilor Tesler's?
No, it's part of what we brought as an example of what could be done. The city staff, the attorney's office, have to bless the final language.
So we don't have explanatory statement tonight as part of this discussion?
Only the one that we've provided.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, excuse us, we had to have a little clarification here. Thank you. All right, we have more people to testify. Alan Taylor and then Anita Richardson.
Madam Mayor, City Manager, and Attorney, esteemed councilors, special guests, and we the people. My name is Alan Taylor. I have been a small business owner and an entrepreneur since 1986. My first business was a mom and pop retail store in a small town of 7,000 people. I did well for the first year and a half until Walmart moved into our town. Using their tried and true strategy, they put most of the small businesses struggling at best out of business. This was my first real-life introduction to corporate philosophy, and that has only grown more severe in our country. America's real economy is driven by 28 million small businesses, not the Walmarts and big corporations. Oregon small business owners complain about paying taxes that corporations don't pay. But our biggest concern is for the monopolistic power advantage large chains and box stores have, coupled with an outsized role they play in politics. I stand in solidarity with 8 out of 10 other Oregon business owners who say the Citizens United decision hurts small businesses. We're looking for a level playing field. and as the country's primary job creators, we should have it. Before you this evening is a decision which would allow the voices of the people to be heard. President Obama said in his State of the Union address on January 27, 2010, I quote, "I don't think American elections should be bankrolled by America's most powerful interests, or worse, by foreign entities. They should be decided by the American people." Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Are there questions? All right, thank you very much. Anita Richardson?
Hello, my name is Anita Richardson, and I live at 2225 Timothy Drive Northwest in Salem. I wish to offer my thanks to the council for the opportunity to speak. As one who has held an elected office and who has been expected to use my vote to decide such issues as school attendance boundaries, I bring you good tidings. I will not be asking you to offer your opinion regarding the issue of corporate personhood, nor will I ask you how you will vote on a question such as, do you think that corporations should be considered persons under U.S. constitutional law? What I am asking is that you, as my city council, allow me and the other citizens of Salem our opportunity to vote on the issue of corporations as people and money as speech. Since the January 2010 Supreme Court Citizens United decision, discussion has moved from the courtroom to the kitchen table and behind the counters of the nation's small businesses. The issues of corporations as people and money as speech are much more far-reaching than simple party line politics. For example, in December 2010 and January 2011, Hart Research Associates, handout number 1, conducted a nationally representative survey of 500 voters that asked various questions, including, would you support a constitutional amendment that would overturn the Citizens United decision and make clear that corporations do not have the same rights as people? The breakdown of respondents by party affiliation was as follows. Democrats support 87%, 13% oppose. Independents 82% support, 18% oppose. Republicans 68% support, 32% oppose. Persons, regardless of party affiliation, expressed a concern about viewing corporations as persons under the law. This is a concern that crosses party lines. In addition, the Main Street Alliance conducted a nationally representative survey in December 2011 and January 2012 of 500 randomly sampled small business owners across the country, which is included in handout number 2. Of those surveyed nationally, 66% believe that allowing corporations to utilize unlimited free speech dollars in elections is mostly bad for small businesses. As you heard 2 weeks ago, Main Street Alliance of Oregon conducted an informal survey which included 55 small businesses located in Salem. 2/3 of those businesses expressed support for a constitutional amendment limiting the notions of corporations as people and money as speech. As you can see, not only does public concern regarding the question of corporations as people and money as speech cross party lines, but it also is a topic of discussion within the small business community. Therefore, I urge you to give the citizens of Salem, regardless of party affiliation and local small business owners, the opportunity to vote on the issue of corporations as people under the law and money as speech. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Ms. Richardson? All right, thank you. Michelle Alberson? No, I'm sorry, Michelle Alderson and John Miller.
Hello, I'm Michelle Alderson. I reside at 472 Flying Squirrel Way Northwest. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Can you speak down into the microphone? There
Okay.
you go.
Is that better?
That's good, thanks.
Corporations first appeared in the 17th century Europe, and government chartered all corporations. That is, it gave corporations a specific mission in exchange for the right to exist. By allowing investors to pool their capital, the monarch made it possible for companies to launch ventures that would have been impossible for one person. In exchange for the charter, companies expanded their government's wealth and power by creating colonies as a source of raw materials and markets for exported goods. The United States was settled by such a company, the Massachusetts Bay Company, chartered by King Charles I in 1628 in order to colonize the New World. American revolutionaries who chose not to be subjects in a feudal system and inspired by the radical ideas of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, fought for independence from the crown and from the corporate bodies it had chartered. The Boston Tea Party was a protest against the British East India Company's monopoly on the Eastern trade. By 1787, there were fewer than 40 corporations operating in the United States. These corporations were typically chartered to perform public functions like digging canals, building bridges, constructing turnpikes, and providing financial services. When these services had been completed, so were the corporations. Our forefathers never intended for corporations to have the same constitutional rights they granted to their citizens, living, breathing beings. Therefore, corporations are not entitled to use any of our amendments as a defense in our courts, but they have been allowed to utilize these by various decisions handed down by the U.S. Supreme Court. And because corporations are not people and do not have mouths, the court decided they could use their money to speak. This we oppose. We want to remove the unlimited money from any and all elections so that once again our votes will count. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Miss Alderson? All right, John Miller, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is John Miller, 495 State Street. I'm a local business owner, and I'm also the current president of the Salem Area Chamber of Commerce. I gave you some written testimony as well. I just wanted to add a few remarks in addition to that written testimony. I'm kind of surprised by this, the fact that anymore for recreation, I find myself reading books about organizations. And a lot of them have to do with business, but they relate to just about any organization you could think of. And certainly the city of Salem is a big organization. One of the common themes in all these books I read is focus. Choose something that you want to do well, that's important to you, and that you want to excel at, and focus on it. And so I have no comment about the merits of this idea that we're discussing here, but we have a lot of folks here are in city council and staff, and I'm just guessing by looking around that we're probably going to spend about an hour and a half on this tonight. And my comment is simply this, is that Salem has a lot of issues to deal with that are very pertinent to being a successful city. And my statement is simply that this issue, it does not belong in this forum. It's not what the city is about. And I would say that that's true regardless of the issue that you might be taking up. I might favor a motion to amend the U.S. Constitution to have a balanced budget amendment, but I would be equally opposed to taking up city council time to address that issue or any similar such issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Miller? Councilor Tessler.
Yes, I do have a question for you, Mr. Miller. You know, the Salem Chamber of Commerce has many issues that they bring to council that we spend a lot of hours and time on, along with staff. And so would you consider that a waste of your money?
Not at all, because I think you'd find that all of those issues are very relevant to creating jobs in the city of Salem. And I think that's pretty relevant to what the city council should be focused on.
Well, that's correct. And each one of us here is elected by a constituency, and that constituency does have the right to communicate their needs to us and to put a motion on the floor. And that's what's happening tonight. So I thank you for your opinion. I don't agree with it, but, you know, I thank you for it.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for coming. Appreciate your testimony. William Dalton and Neil Feldman.
Good evening. My name is William Dalton. I reside at 6619 Huntington Circle Southeast here in Salem. I didn't come with prepared comments, if you will, but the gentleman, I think his name was Mr. Miller, who spoke before me, gives me a unique opportunity, I think, to express to express something that's very important to me. We led off this evening with several of the councilors and I believe the mayor commenting on some of the things that we're most proud about recently, and maybe not so recently, about Salem. And one of the things that I'm proud of is that the City Council, as representing probably the most accessible element in a democratic republic, is here in order to consider excuse me, some of these very kinds of concerns. I'm here simply to express my appreciation that the council is willing to consider putting this kind of amendment on the ballot so that the majority of citizens in our city have the opportunity to express their opinions on what I consider to be a couple of the most major issues facing us as a democratic republic. I can't think of a better place to begin the process than to have a local ballot, and I can't consider anything that I would be prouder of than having the city take the initiative, not in making a decision about how its citizenry stands on these important issues, but rather giving its citizens the opportunity to express themselves through the very precious process we have, the electoral process. So thank you very much for putting this on the agenda, and I certainly hope that the outcome will be the opportunity for the citizens to vote on these issues.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Dalton? Councilor Bennett.
Mr. Dalton, you commented on Mr. Miller's testimony, and I want to just follow up on that because I thought he made a really interesting point, and one that troubles me tremendously about this issue, which is where I may or may not agree with this proposal. I can't tell because I can't figure out yet what the proposal is exactly. It's an interesting idea, but nobody's shown me anything that's concrete, okay? But he also pointed out that he has constitutional amendments he'd be interested in. And of course, I think of ones that, if we were asked to take a look at the constitutionality and have you all vote on Roe v. Wade and its constitutionality, a balanced budget amendment, and I'm thinking of ones because I know you, that I think you would understand the point I'm making, is given the kind of balkanization of our politics into single issues all over the place, left and right, it strikes me, and you comment on this because I know you're a smart guy on this stuff, couldn't we spend a great deal of time asking the people of Salem what they think on every issue that has popped up on every talk show, liberal and conservative, that's out there? Could that happen to us, do you think, opening the door here?
I think that's an important question. Interestingly, I think you've chosen in your example some of the high-profile kind of issues that probably people wish they had more of an opportunity to address. And as I mentioned earlier, I've testified before the legislature, and I'm very proud of Oregon because of the openness of its legislative process as compared with other states in which I've resided. And I have that same pride for Salem. And I would hope, because of the balkanization that you refer to, that we might have an opportunity, more opportunities, not to discuss all of these issues before City Council in depth per se, because I think Mr. Miller did reference the focus, the appropriate role of a City Council, which I think the City Council has taken very much, to heart, and very effectively so. But I think the more opportunities the citizenry really has to express itself on some of these issues that have led our legislative process at times to come to an almost complete halt might be very helpful in moving that process of our elected officials taking actions that are consistent with the feelings and the thoughts and perspectives of the electorate. I really appreciated Kerry Topol's comments about the rights of the individual and not seeing those overwhelmed by money, whether that money comes from the left or the right or whatever organizations it comes from. So thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you. And Neil Feldman, I believe, has a microphone. Welcome, Mr. Feldman.
Thank you, Madam. Is it on?
It's on.
Okay. Couldn't tell. Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council, staff. I just, everybody says, like Mr. Miller, it's like, what's the big deal? What's the rush? What have you? Well, we've had 236 years or so of this country running along pretty well in general. A few bumps along the way. But through the entirety of it, corporations were pieces of paper. They were not people. Money was not speech. Money's a bullhorn. The more money you have, the bigger bullhorn you have, but you still have one speech. And most of the founding fathers, especially most of the framers of the main Constitution, like Jefferson, Madison, and so on, they were extremely concerned with the concept of corporations as people, as it were, with the corrupting influence, as they called it, of corporations on the body politic. And as to how relevant it is, this is an elected body. The mayor's elected, the councilors are elected. And this ruling really stabs at the heart of any kind of democracy in our republic, because it basically sits there and says, if say, Tesla and Bennett were running against each other for whatever reason, and one of them had been handed a $100 million check from the Koch brothers, and one of them did not, who do you think is going to win, regardless of what their policies are? I mean, this is, sad to say, not a particularly well-educated electorate. Money in advertising has a very disproportional effect on politics and policy. And so I really strongly state against Mr. Miller's position that this is a very valid point for the city to take a stand on. It's a matter of grassroots, the people coming up to their lowest level directly representative politicians to say, hey, we want to at least have a say in the matter. Is that too much to ask?
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Feldman? All right, thank you very much. Paul Jowdis and then Bill Wolf.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Councilors. My name is Paul Jowdis, and I live here in Salem, and I'm also the chapter leader for Americans for Prosperity. I'm here tonight to oppose this move. I think this is nothing more than an attack against private enterprise. The U.S. Supreme Court has already ruled that corporations have a constitutional free speech right to spend freely to support or oppose political candidates in federal elections. Tonight, we have heard nothing but an attack on corporations and businesses. It's all of their fault. But we haven't heard anything about unions. We haven't heard anything about nonprofits. We haven't heard anything about non-governmental organizations, which seem to have as much or more money than corporations do to affect and influence elections and campaigns. This move to amend does nothing to address any of those. All it does is attack artificial entities, and that's the term that it uses. We start making laws, they want to create regulations to regulate all entities that they don't agree with. Where will it end? Will all these entities that have lots of money be regulated, or will only some? Who's going to keep it fair? If we regulate the Supreme Court, where is it going to stop? Are we headed toward a king or an emperor? We need to stop this, and we need to take a stand. This is a republic, and we're all governed under the same law. And everybody has their rights. Corporations are nothing but a group of people. Don't they have rights? Just like the unions, they scream for their rights, but when it comes to corporations, all of a sudden those rights disappear. I think we should take a stand and see this as what it is and put a stop to it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions of Mr. Jowdis? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony. And now Bill Wolf.
Thank you. Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name is Bill Wolf. I live at 662 Jacoby Street, Kaiser, Oregon. Last time I didn't mention, I also have 2 properties in Salem, one in Lansing, one in Northgate.
Excuse me, could you please speak up?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, I live in Kaiser. I have 2 properties in Salem, and I'm Secretary of Move to Amend. I'm kind of coming at the end here. One thing I want you to know about the Move to Amend suggested language, which we believe is the best there is. And the reason why is exactly what the gentleman just said. Our does not discriminate against unions. They're included. Our amendment says corporations, period. And a union is a corporate form. There are many corporate forms, and we suggest that only people have the rights that the Constitution was wrote for people. It wasn't wrote for corporate forms. And so we are not discriminating, and that's why I think ours will be successful. We strongly feel that all of those entities have a right and will have, not rights, but they'll have privileges to spend money through campaign finance laws that will say how much can be spent by individuals and by corporations. It's just we should have the right as a people to be the ones that make those rules, not the corporations. So the strategy of Move to Amend, that really hasn't been talked about much, but we could go right up to, like a lot of times you want a constitutional amendment, you go to the straight to the source, right? You go to the United States Congress. One problem is the Congress, Republicans and Democrats, happen to be the recipients of most of that money we're talking about. So that's not an easy way to go. That's why Move to Amend has decided that we are doing this from the bottom up. I mean, a true grassroots effort. We don't have corporate money bankrolling us. Believe me, we're selling these buttons for money. We are going to cities across the United States. This isn't something that just a few of us here just got a whimsy and decided to come to Salem City Council and take your time up. This is a coordinated effort. We've been planning this. We're thinking about it. And we're doing this across the country. We are taking it to the people as a grassroots, bottom-up, whatever you want to call it. We're getting it out to the people so they can have the decision on this, not to the congressmen who are already, whether they're good or bad or whatever, they're already influenced by the money that they have to spend every day hours on the phone trying to get more so they could make enough for their next election. The reason that we're here in front of the City Council is because this is where the democracy rests. It's the local level. You're down at the level where the people are. You're not in Washington, D.C., up in some office that is so far away that they don't even know what's going on here in Salem. You're the ones that can make this decision. You're the ones that can give a voice to the people in Salem. You could say yes, and you're not making a decision. You're just passing it along like a grand jury might, where they don't say yes or no, guilty or innocent, and that's it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony. Are there questions for Mr. Was it Wilkes?
Wolf.
Wolf, thank you. Mr. Wolf. All right, thank you very much. That concludes the number of people who had signed up to testify on this particular issue. Was there anyone else here who wished to testify and wasn't able to sign up? Yes.
My name is David Engen, Mayor and City Councilors. I've been in front of this body numerous times over the last 20 years or so. To me, this just looks like a perfect example of local democracy, and why the heck not do it? And that's directed at my counselor as much as anybody. I want to remind people. So thank you very much for letting everyone speak tonight. It's democracy at the roots. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there questions? Councilor Bennett.
Yeah, as David's counselor, I got to check in with him, I guess. Well, David, I know your politics, and you know mine. We have a pretty reasonable discussion on politics, but are you not troubled that if we open this gate, which has not been opened, It's only been done since this is, last time something like this was done, if I understand the history of this correctly, was sometime in the 60s where we asked the people, do you want to have your water fluoridated? Okay? Since then, we've had the Vietnam War, the Iraq War, crashes and booms and busts and Republicans and Democrats and all the rest of it. Not once during all those turbulent times did this city council put out a vote like this. And I am genuinely concerned, and I want to hear your advice on this. I am genuinely concerned about opening the gates to anyone, because we can't say no now to anyone under this theory that I hear being espoused tonight, to vote on every single crackpot issue that comes forward. And I mean that on both the left and right. This isn't a crackpot issue. Gosh, they never are, and I wouldn't say it about anyone's in particular, but trust me, there are crackpot issues out there. We've talked about them. That we're going to suddenly be asked and have no reason ever to say no to anyone to put that on the ballot for the city, for residents of Salem to discuss and think about from their city council, which specializes in potholes, water quality, firemen. You know, it disturbs me that this isn't a petition from all of you to keep our library open next year, which is what the real issues are in Salem, not what Walmart's doing here. So help me out here, Dave.
Let me say this to you, and then I'll make a few comments. But you and I should get together again and have a personal discussion about this issue and a lot of others. But this reminds me very much. By the way, I'm a Vietnam vet,
right.
And this very much reminds me of when the Iraq War issue was brought in front of councils all over this country, and this whole place was filled, and they filled a room in the library of people who were interested in that issue. And I think this issue is similar to that in many ways. It's of such a vital importance to this country that I think maybe we all should realize that and go ahead and do it. But I would really like the people to be able occasionally to vote on an issue of this nature. And if it seems to carry weight, if it has weight with the people, then the city council should consider that. If it's some nut coming in and saying, well, I want us to start shooting at flying saucers or something, then, that's obviously bogus. But
it's, well,
yeah, I mean, I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Our nut, not your nut.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate everything you're doing for the city.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony. All right. We'll now move to the motion. Councilor Tesler?
Thank you. I move that council direct the city manager to develop and place an advisory measure on the November 6, 2012 general election ballot that provides the citizens of Salem a chance to vote on the question of corporate personhood.
It's been moved by Councilor Tesler and seconded by Councilor Dickey to move to direct the city manager to develop and place an advisory measure on the ballot in November. I'd like to ask our city attorney to explain before we have discussion or vote on the motion exactly what that process is, because I want to be certain that it's very clearly understood by everyone here exactly how this city manages this kind of process.
Yeah, the way this would work would be that a draft measure would be brought back to the city council for approval. After the city council has approved the measure, then it is referred to me to prepare the ballot title. I prepare the ballot title, and then after that, an explanatory statement is prepared that comes back to the city council for approval. So under Oregon election law, the city council would approve the text of the measure and the text of the explanatory statement, and then the city attorney prepares the ballot title. And it has to come back to you folks. The city manager can't do it of his or her own accord.
And what type of timeline would we be looking at if this motion were to pass for that process?
Oh, it'd be relatively short.
So we would have that back at our next council meeting?
That would be possible, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. All right, is there discussion? Councilor Clausen, and then Councilor Tessler, and then, excuse me, Councilor Tessler, then Councilor Clausen. Thanks.
Thank you. This is a very important issue to the Ward 2 constituency, and I have the right to ask for a motion to address this issue as a city councilor to represent my constituency. It's easy to just focus on local issues and not think about the national issues that may impact us locally over time. I also strongly believe that the citizens of Salem should have the right to vote on these issues before us, as this issue affects all of us. I will never stop representing my constituency with laser-like focus and the issues that concern them. That is what I was elected to do. Indeed, that is what we were all elected to do. When citizens stop having a voice, we no longer have a democracy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Clausen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I respect this motion, and I have to say I completely respect the opinion that's out here. I love the conversation. I don't know the ins and outs of it, and I'm actually anticipating sitting down and really conversing about this a lot more with a lot of people in the community. I have some concerns, though, of us taking this forward. One would be, everybody agrees that there's no cohesive statement that's on the table for anybody with this motion across the United States with this movement. There's no cohesive argument that's on the table. It's a real vague generality at this point. And what I get concerned about on that is if we ask our citizens to vote on a vague question, nobody can argue that it's not vague because there's no cohesive statement out there. We get an answer. The question is then clarified by people who we are not involved with. Now what happens to our answer? Who interprets our answer for our local people in Salem? I'm very concerned about that. Second concern I have is that we as the city of Salem are not constitutional nor corporate lawyers. We don't deal in constitutional or corporate law. I'm concerned about what everything is that goes into it and about our ability to do that. Thirdly, I'm very concerned about perception. If we as the city council move to put that forward, the perception is very much going to be that the council supports it. I don't care what we say in the statement. That's going to be the perception that's out there. As the first testimony said, all these other communities are asserting their independence from corporations. I'm concerned that we're going to be lumped into asserting our independence when all we're doing is putting a neutral question on the table. And I'm not saying we are or we aren't. I'm not saying it's not a good thing that we need to have the conversation about and people have the right to be heard about. I'm saying the way we go about this concerns me. My next concern is, you know, this is exactly what political polls are. There's a scientific method, an accepted scientific method to go out and ask people what they think about a certain matter. I don't understand why this can't be a political poll. We could go out and we could poll the entirety of the city of Salem, I'm sure. We'd probably get a better response out of a poll like that than we would out of the number of voters who will turn out in November. So I'm not totally understanding why this needs to be a vote. And then lastly, I really, as Councilor Bennett mentioned, I'm concerned about the precedent that this sets in terms of putting these questions out there. I'm concerned that we're going to start being inundated with requests for quote-unquote free political polls by putting it on the vote and put it on the, you know, put it out there for the, I know it's free for us, but the county has to pay for all the people who are putting this together and putting it out there. And I'm concerned about the precedent that it sets. So I have a lot of concerns, enough concerns that I don't think I can support this. I'm real happy to sit down and talk with people. I love the idea. I love the conversation. I just don't think I can support this because the questions that go along with the way it has to be done to get it on the ballot.
Thank you. Councilor Nanke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm on the same page as Councilor Clausen with the majority of that. Bigger issue is, this is very constitutionally complex. I mean, we're dealing with 4 existing amendments that deal with corporations and free speech as well. Mr. Feldman had talked about our, electorate. the majority aren't that sophisticated in regards. I read a 24-page Rutgers Law piece last night. The Constitution in and of itself, the amendments. People are going to see this, they'll look at the title and say, well, yeah, corporations are people. In a large percentage, I will see that happening. So what does that vote then tell me? It's advisory to the City of Salem, but it's not, because the City of Salem City Council government is going to do nothing with this. You're not advising us. We're not taking away anybody's right to speak, because those people are either at the State House or at the federal level. And if they're already corrupted by money, what is the end result? Everybody says, we don't want this to happen, but the people who would actually make that amendment will not make it. You need to be working on those people who will take over those seats over time and put the people into government that will do what the people want them to. If you look at the results of a potentially skewed, because I can't rightly tell, everybody says, oh, unions are in this, or no, they're not. It says corporation. Well, a union isn't a corporation, they're a 501c5 advocacy group. There's too many questions to this, and it seems very political. This is a nonpartisan body that should be taking advice on things that the city should be doing for the city's well-being. There's other avenues, either through the state or the feds, for this conversation to take place. All of them could call tomorrow. Flood the switchboards. That would make a statement. I'm not sure a vote in the city of Salem on a very complex issue, unless you're going to have a big stack of literature going with it to adequately describe what those constitutional ramifications are and how they were developed and how they've progressed and changed over the last couple hundred years.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dickey and then Councillor Bennett.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
No.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Not really well, no.
Okay, well, I'll speak up really loud
Thanks.
too. So, when I first heard about this issue, I talked to someone from Move to Amend, and I think the first thing I told them was, I'm not really crazy about anything that amends a constitution, and it doesn't matter what the issue is. I always take a little bit of pause about that. The second thing was, I'm not really sure that it would be appropriate for the city council specifically to take an issue or take a position on this issue. When it was reframed and brought to us as, can we let the citizens of Salem have a voice in this? I have no issue with this, and I'll be supporting the motion. Clearly, we've heard from people who support it and the reasons why they support it, although that's not why we're voting, what we're voting on tonight. We've heard from people who do not support the particular issue, although that is not what we're voting on tonight. I tend to believe that the voters of the city of Salem are reasonable people who will read what they're voting on. I believe every person in this room reads what you vote on before you vote, and I have no reason to expect that any one of the citizens of Salem who vote would do anything less. I have a lot of faith in our citizens and would trust that they would do that. And as far as, because I thought a little bit about too, any issue could be brought to us. It has to be brought to us from a counselor who thinks this is important. Their constituents have contacted them or something, so it's not just any issue that shows up on the agenda that we suddenly start debating these issues that appear to have no relevance to what we do. One of our counselors felt that this was important, had been contacted by many constituents, and so for that reason I will be supporting this. And I think that any of us on the council, if we have an issue that we feel is important because it's been brought to us by our constituents, would deserve merit to be discussed on the council floor if the counselor thought it was appropriate.
Councillor Bennett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councillor Clausen in terms of the question before us. I still don't understand what's in this. I've read it. I don't think Councillor Tessler's motion describes effectively what our process is. Mm-hmm. Just turn it over to the city manager and she puts it on the ballot. I'm having I feel like this is sloppy. Just that's how just how I'm reading this. If the only determinant is a group of my constituents approach me, then there are a lot of ideas that will come in front of us, because my constituents approach me with a lot of different ideas and concerns, which I think are perfectly legitimate. We've had 2 nights of really extensive public testimony on this. I've heard a full airing of the issue. I've heard my friend from Kaiser and I think one other person talk about the merits of what's being talked about, which is put it on the ballot. The rest of it is a debate over this issue. That's what this discussion's been about, is over the issue. So if you think you're just voting to put it on the ballot, stop now. You're voting because you absolutely agree with what was placed in front of you tonight in terms of what this measure is. And if you have a copy, I'd like to see the copy you have to see if it's like the copy I have, and if your phone calls from people have all agreed, because this has not been a really focused discussion of exactly what we're talking about. Part of it is the amending process for the U.S. Constitution is a fairly straightforward one, and it was described. Congress refers it to the state legislatures, and I think for 10 years they can consider it, and one at a time they vote it until you hit 3/4 and it's changed. I was in the legislature when the ERA came through and the Equal Rights Amendment came through. It's a very straightforward process. I would see no problem if people came to us at a certain point during that process and said, okay, here's the constitutional amendment. Representative Clem, Representative Cameron, Senator Courtney won't vote on this, and we want to tell them, and at least it would relate to somebody I've heard of, because my congressman, both of my senators apparently support some version of this. They've already been persuaded, so I'm not sure who the people of Salem are talking to. The proponents tonight are telling me it's not me they're talking to. They understand I've got absolutely no voice in this. I guess finally, the fundamental disappointment to me in this kind of discussion, and I like this kind of stuff. This is what I do for a living. I love politics, and I love political discussions, and I can spend endless hours on them, but I also like to have a point. I always think it's really good if you have a place you're going and you've got a goal that actually fits who you're talking to, which is what makes me unhappy, that this many people I know, I mean, geez, Tesler's got constituents. I got constituents here. But they're not talking to me about the library, about the police we're cutting. The library gower's gone in West Salem. They're not talking about the potholes. They're not talking about the homeless, the hungry, the children that live in parks while they're trying to go to school. No, they're down here talking about Walmart. There's something we can do about these other issues. Why aren't we asking the public, what do you want to do about these things that really matter? We closed 2 fire stations. Lots of comment, but nobody came down and said, let's put it to an advisory vote. That's what disturbs me, is not understanding sometimes. If people understand what we do, we fill potholes, we arrest criminals, we deliver good drinking water, and we get rid of the sewage. I'll just underline that. I'm just very concerned that this is very inappropriate for a discussion for this city council, no matter how good the issue. And I didn't even look at the issue. What I'm disturbed by is the precedent. And I went over that with Dave Engen, so I really urge you to vote no.
Thank you. I'd like to make a couple of comments as well. I say again and again to our council, we must keep our eye on the ball. We must remember our priorities. We must remember jobs and economic development are number 1 and 2, or 1A and 1B on our council goals. We have priorities. And one of the important priorities we have as well is the priority to the use of staff time and the commitment that we've made as we went through the budgeting process and as we've had other council work sessions and other discussions, that we want to be sure that we're helping staff to keep their eye on the ball as well. As far as what we're elected to do, we are elected to be leaders. We are not elected to be swayed by the push and the pull of a few people who may send us emails and may telephone us. Some councilors have talked about their constituents. I have about 160,000 constituents, counting men, women, and children, maybe a few chickens. But I certainly haven't heard from 160,000 or even 80,000 or even 40,000 of my constituents on this issue. I think the role of leader is a complex one, and it's not always an easy one. It's not always easy when a constituent says, I'd like you to deal with this issue. I'd like you to put this on the ballot. We have an important job to do, and part of that is to inform our constituents about what we do as a city council and what we do as a city and what we can do to make their lives better. And part of our educational process opportunity is to tell them what other body and what other process will help them reach their goal. It's not to redirect the attention of this council in this city to items that are not in our purview. I think Councilor Bennett raises a very important issue. If this is the first, then what next? And I would just encourage councilors to be strong and to remember that you're elected to be leaders. And leaders educate as well as respond. So I won't be supporting this motion, and those are the reasons why. Thank you. Other councilor comment? Councilor Blasey?
Thank you. Just one quick comment. We have spent a considerable amount of time talking about this, and we have allowed folks to come forward and present. And I think that, I don't think it's a waste of our time, but I certainly agree that, we need to maintain focus. I think my biggest concern with this, though, is I would echo what Councilor Bennett said. I just don't really understand what the final statement is. And I do have a concern about asking city staff to define that. I think that should have been defined. We should know exactly what we're presenting, what we're asking the citizens to vote on. So I think it should have been better defined.
Thank you. All right. Any further council comments, questions? Yes, our guest counselor.
Yes. I just had to throw out there a typical simplistic guest counselor question. And I'm not the type of person that says we need to do something a certain way because we've always done it that way.
No.
But has the city of Salem ever put a measure on the ballot before that they can't actually implement? Because this seems more of a pulse-taking type of a ballot question than something that typically the questions are, shall we do this, shall we do that, and then the city either does it or does not do it. Has this happened before, just without research?
I believe there was a case where this happened in the 40s when the city placed a measure on the ballot whether it should acquire what was then a privately owned water system to provide municipal water for the city of Salem. Advisory votes, I'm not going to say they're common around the state, but they do occur from time to time. When I was in Coos Bay, I drafted an advisory vote that had to do with creating a trust fund based on some money that the city received from ODOT for assuming jurisdiction over a section of state highway. Another thing that was that you've seen from time to time are votes on whether or not water should be fluoridated. So the advisory measures in Oregon have typically been about local affairs.
All right. If there are no further Councilor Thomas?
I was not going to say anything, but I think I need to. Too many times, the local branch of government is sometimes leery on dealing with issues such as this. And the local government, in some instances, are usually left out or looked over or just totally looked at as non-void. We need to set a precedence and approve this, move it forward, because it's not just about being a leader. A good leader knows how to follow. And we need to learn to listen to our constituents. So it's kind of, I'm hearing everything that's going forth. I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I can't really give a lot more input than I would like to. But just hearing what I'm hearing right now, I feel that we need to support this as a local government, because you never know what's going to come up to the point. We're all elected. We're nonpartisan in this capacity. But we do have a voice just like the rest of the people in this community. They put us here, and they can remove us. So that's just my feedback. I think we need to support it. We need to meet the needs of our constituents, our community members, and we need to listen to them a little bit more instead of just, you know, going back and forth. So.
All right, are we ready for the question? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Would you like to have a hand count? All right. All those in favor say, hold up your hand. Okay. And those against? All right, motion fails. Thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break here. I think some people might like to leave at this point. We encourage everyone to stay if you like, but we know the evening is going to start getting long. And then we'll come right back. get back to order. We're ready? All right, we'll continue. We're now at item 3 on the consent calendar. Councilor Bennett?
Madam Mayor, I move the consent calendar.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve, moved by Councilor Bennett, seconded by Councilor Danke to approve the consent calendar. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right. That moves us along to public hearings. Item 4, public hearing A, continuation of deliberation. Councilor Bennett.
Madam Mayor, I move the council continue this hearing until the first meeting in December.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Bennett, seconded by Councilor Tessler to continue this hearing to the first meeting in December. Yes. Right? Correct. Is there discussion? Councilor Bennett, did you want to speak to your motion?
Just, this has been a really successful model of how not to pass an ordinance right on. It actually has been working well. There still are problems that the newspaper is working out, but they've been doing a real good job. We may be able to clear the decks on this sometime in the next while, but I don't think now is the time, so I'd ask you to just take it forward. We'll have another visit in December, make sure everything's going okay, let them try the fall months, see if they can keep up what good work they're doing.
Councilor Nanke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, and I was actually hoping someone would make a motion to continue this further on, because it sounds like we're moving in the right direction, but that's not necessarily the time that you take the heat off. So until I see some numbers looking better, because what concerns me are the people who have called and said, don't put this on my driveway anymore, and it keeps landing there again and again. Mm-hmm. Once that piece is resolved, if you get an errant one here or there, but it's that systemic type action that I'd like to make sure is cleared up before we let this go.
Councilor Bennett, did you want to add something?
Yeah, just to follow up on Councilor Nanke, I had it show up uninvited in my yard 5 times during the past, which I always think if it shows up on the city councilor who's kind of sponsoring one of these things yard, it must be really bad out there somewhere. So it made me think it's time to keep, it's good to keep stuff like this in place. So.
All right, any further comment? Then we'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Public hearing 4B is a continued hearing. Is this a hearing that the city recorder reads any information on? No, all right. We have one person signed up. No, we don't have anyone signed up to testify on this item.
We do have an engrossed ordinance, though, staff would.
Do we have a staff report? Thank you, Mr. Gross. I'm sorry if I didn't see your hand.
That's all right.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Glenn Gross, Planning Administrator, and this is an item that was continued from your June 4th meeting. At that time, Council directed staff to look into 3 things in particular. 3 issues. 1, should residential districts allow internally illuminated signs? 2, should what we call vehicle viewing signs, or mostly menu boards, should those be allowed to be increase in size? And 3rd, should we have an exemption in the sign code for signs that are not visible from right-of-way and or adjacent property? We've looked into those 3 issues, and tonight we're recommending that Council pass the engrossed bill without dealing with those 3 issues. We would like to examine those further, conduct further public outreach. They may have merit, but we want to take some more time with them, so we would be asking you to pass the engrossed bill, but allow us to take some more time with those issues and then come back at a later date with a recommendation.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, I want to be very clear about one thing. which is there was engrossed Bill A, which originally increased the sign from 20, viewing signs from 24 to 34 square feet.
Yes.
The bill that is in your ordinance tonight would re-engross the bill back to 24 square feet.
Right.
Councillor Nanki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What kind of time frame are we looking at to investigate the other options and have those come back before the council?
We really haven't nailed that down, but what we would like to do is make an offer to neighborhood associations that might want to have a discussion with us, and so it's going to be in part dependent upon, what kind of level of interest we get. But I'm thinking 90 days, something like that.
Yeah, because some of those items are very important, and they're important to me too, and, energy and light pollution are big issues for people. And again, the ones that aren't in people's view depends on what construction happens between now and when this comes back again, what people are able to do. And so it'd be nice to move that as quickly as we can and get it resolved. I don't want it to be like fences, if you remember those days. We did fences for a long, long time.
All right, so Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Just to be clear that there are multiple staff reports, and the staff recommendation would be for the supplemental report for continued public hearing.
Do you want me to say that better, straighter?
That would be good.
Okay.
All right.
I move the City Council advance B engrossed ordinance bill number 4-12 to second reading for enactment. Should I keep going? Direct the staff to approve.
And the rest of the staff.
And the rest of the staff report. Thank you.
Second.
All right. Is there discussion? All right, we'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we have no special orders of business and no unfinished business. And in your packet, there's an information report. We'll move on to ordinances. We have no first readings. We have second readings. Would the recorder like to introduce those?
Yes. Ordinance Bill Number 1612 relating to setting and collecting a processing fee for dishonored payments, amending SRC 2.375 and SRC 4.170, and declaring an emergency. Councillor Clem is absent. Councillor Bennett?
Aye.
Councillor Tessler? Aye. Councillor Nanki?
Aye.
Councillor Clausen?
Aye.
Councillor Dickey?
Aye.
Councillor Thomas?
Aye.
Councillor Blasey?
Aye.
Mayor Peterson?
Aye.
Ordinance Bill Number 1712 relating to the Downtown Parking District, amending SRC 7.090 and declaring an emergency. Councillor Bennett?
Aye.
Councillor Tessler?
Aye.
Councillor Nanki?
Aye.
Councillor Clausen?
Aye.
Councillor Dickey?
Aye.
Councillor Thomas?
Aye.
Councillor Blasey?
Aye.
Councillor Clem is absent. Mayor Peterson?
Aye.
Ordinance Bill Number 1912 relating to the discharge of air guns, amending SRC 95.020. Councillor Tessler?
Aye.
Councillor Nanki?
Aye.
Councillor Clausen?
Aye.
Councillor Dickey?
Aye.
Councillor Thomas?
Aye.
Councillor Blasey?
Aye.
Councillor Clem is absent. Councillor Bennett?
Yeah, aye.
Mayor Peterson?
Aye.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. We now move to public comment, and we have no one signed up for public comment under item 9. Is there anyone in the chamber that wishes to speak? All right, we'll move on. New business. We have no mayor's items, and we have a councilor's item, 10.2A, Parking Task Force with Councilor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the City Council direct staff to broaden the June 11th Parking Task Force evaluation area to include the Capitol Mall, West Salem, Edgewater/2nd Street, North Downtown, Pringle Parkade, Downtown Parking District, and areas south to Mission Street.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
And is there a discussion? Councilor Bennett, and then Councilor Nanki, and then I have a comment, question, actually.
Okay. The idea here came in a discussion with city staff regarding the parking task force and kind of the look at the broad parking issues that you all approved on June 11th by creating a task force, but it, through unfortunate wordsmithing, remained confined to just downtown. The problem with just downtown is it doesn't really cover all of the issues that are...
Go away. Go away. Excuse me.
Go away.
Could we please have quiet in the chambers?
Yeah, go away.
Who's making noise?
Yeah, him.
All right.
He's accosting you.
Excuse me, Counselor Bennett.
Did you see
I'm
this?
sorry.
Pull that up. He brought this into us. Thank you
Oh.
very much.
I'm sorry that that occurred for you. That's inappropriate, and this council certainly wouldn't condone that type of conduct in the council. Do we need a sergeant at arms? Do we need someone to come? All right,
We won't leave
we're
until
okay.
they leave the building. Yeah, now he's flipping me off. Yeah, go.
Okay, I think we need to ask someone to come up. Would you take care of that, somebody? No. No, not you. No, not you. Not you, okay. All right.
Does that man seem to think that we persuaded all of you to vote the way that you did? We had one voice and they had all the rest. And he's picking on us.
I can be done with this real quick.
All right, we'll get
This is
back.
just about parking.
We'll get back to the meeting, and I think that's being taken care of there. All right, Counselor Bennett.
Thank you. The reality is the downtown parking district really, and the issue of parking is really affected by a much larger universe of activity that goes on around downtown. Things like the Capitol Mall with a 600-person parking deficit. They have 600 more employees than they have places for them to park, has impact. The neighborhoods around it are affected. As we look at the closer in downtown, we never have had a really clear understanding of the parking needs of the conference center and its impact on that south downtown area. We have a large potential parking area coming in one of our south waterfront urban renewal area. What that means in this general area. You go north downtown, has its own parking study underway, and then I can just assure you there's just parking studies galore that we can pull together. And I think it will get us take a little bit larger look at the downtown and its close-in environs and the parking effect, and really look at it a little more systemically. The way this has tended to be looked at is in little pieces, and with all the information available, this will give us an opportunity to get a better look at it, which doesn't mean changing parking rules anywhere. It just means we need to try to figure out what the game looks like, let alone what the rules are going to be. So without that larger look, we thought it might be difficult to take the issues on.
Okay, Counselor Nanke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm always leery of task forces at times in regards to the number of things. You know, parking studies are similar to some of the other ones we've had, but my question would be is, I truly believe we need to look at it in a systemic fashion, but what does that actually mean in regards to the staffing on the task force and the time frame of that group as well then? If we're expanding that scope out, and just knowing that our staff time is becoming more and more restricted and valuable.
All right, I believe
I can speak
Mr.
to
Wales
that.
has a comment? Okay.
Sure. John Wales, Urban Development. Yes, we've talked to Councilor Bennett about this. What the task force is, it would be an expanded role, there's no question, but we believe we can still get through this process this year by addressing those issues on a broader level with the resources that we have, that we have currently budgeted for it.
Can I get a repeat on
Yes,
that last sentence in regards to budgeted for?
Yeah, you may recall, in the budget process, it was identified that there was $20,000 of consulting support for an effort like this. And we have talked with our consultant as to whether it would be a dramatic scope change to focus the facilitation and conversation of this task force just at the downtown, or if the conversation were broader, and we believe we can accommodate it.
Excellent.
Councillor Clausen?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I like this idea. I think hopefully it would help staff time in the future, because then we're not going picking all the side pieces off and we're just taking a comprehensive look at it. So I like the idea.
It's easier for them to get to work after they park.
That's right.
I have a question for Councillor Bennett, and maybe this might be a bit of an addition to the actual motion. I'm wondering about the impact of parking needs at Willamette University and also the parking needs at Salem Hospital until they have time to construct their parking plan, as they have brought it to us. And I'm wondering if we would want to include, or at least, the Willamette University area, because to my knowledge, they don't have a plan for additional parking structure or facilities, as we know the hospital does. And I find that it probably has an impact on that area in adjacent to the state of Oregon, and as well as coming over onto State Street and into downtown.
Yes, Madam Mayor, you make a really good point. Working down at the Capitol, you see the impact we have on them and they have on, and it all happens on State Street. It's real dramatic. But the difficulty, I think, Madam Mayor, in taking on Willamette and the hospital would be to expand this beyond our capacity at this point. But it could be part of our recommendation to you that that part needs another look. They haven't reached a point where we see them. They have a pretty reasonable on-campus parking situation right now. The hospital is dealing with has its parking plan, but if you would allow us, we could, without putting it in as part of the study area, we could come back to you with a recommendation. We'll be talking with Vice President Bauer, and I'm certain with Mr. Gruber to make sure we understand how they fit into the picture, and maybe come back with a recommendation as we evaluate it and kind of figure out where we are. I think we hit a point where it was like, okay, we can do about this much at the max. If we go much further, we might step too far out, if that makes sense.
Okay. Mr. Wales?
I might just, excuse me, add for a little clarity. The original part of the motion that was adopted or approved on June 11th really focused on existing body of work that we have and studies that are already available, and that we were really, the premise, if I understand this, was to focus on what data that we already have. We don't have data on some of these other areas, but that doesn't mean we can't, as Councilor Bennett suggests, produce some follow-up or for some next step for further study, if that would be okay.
Okay.
We would do that.
I think that would be good. And just to, also as a side note, in my discussions with Councilor Bennett, we've talked about the fact that this task force is going to be short-lived, in that its purpose is not to go on and on and on, but to bring us some definite recommendations that will not only address the issues, but address the financial impacts of the parking and the parking needs as well. Okay. Councilor Nanke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In looking out at the future as well, I know Willamette's looking at a potential performing arts center, which I think would have a serious impact of parking in and around an area. So we should at least let them know what we're doing, and it'd be nice to understand what their current and future parking resources are as compared to the utilization, so we know how much of what they do is spilling out that we have to account for, if they have that kind of a number that they could just provide to the group.
I think that's a good point. Councillor Bennett?
Yeah, and thank you very much, Councillor Ninke. I have talked with Vice President Bauer, the facilities vice president, about this, and he's well aware of what, he's also chair of the Downtown Advisory Board, so he's well aware of what we're talking about, and certainly aware of his, the needs Willamette will have as time passes and whether or not they have the capacity to meet them. So we'll keep him close to our hearts on this.
Good. Excellent. All right. Are we ready for the question? All right. Call for the question. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. We have no further business to come before the council. We are adjourned.